The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They were ancient races who believed they understood everything about war, peace, and the nature of species. Though with their crystal ships, though with their hive minds, though with their living metal bodies, and 37 other species had all bowed to the Council's laws. When humanity emerged from their small blue world and stepped into the galaxy, the Council looked at them with amusement. These creatures were soft, fragile, and short-lived. Their ships were crude. Their technology was primitive. The Council gave them a small corner of space and told them to stay quiet. For 50 years, humanity obeyed. They built their colonies slowly. They traded fairly. They followed every rule the Council created. Earth sent diplomats who smiled and nodded at insults. Human merchants accepted unfair trade deals without complaint. The Council thought they had found the most obedient species in the galaxy. They were wrong. They had simply never pushed humanity far enough to see what lay beneath the surface. Admiral Wei stood on the bridge of the battleship Thunder of Earth, watching the live feed from Colony. The video showed warships firing on civilian structures, schools, hospitals, homes filled with families. The commander had called it cleansing because humans had accidentally settled on a moon they claimed from 2,000 years ago. The Council had approved the attack. They called it lawful enforcement of territorial rights. 300,000 humans lived on Colony. They were killing them all to make a point about boundaries. Wei felt something cold settle in his chest. He had spent 30 years serving in the fleet, keeping peace, following orders, believing that patience would earn humanity respect. He watched a hospital collapse on the screen. He watched children running through burning streets. The coldness in his chest turned to something else. It was anger. Pure, ancient anger that humans had carried since they first picked up stones to defend their caves. The Admiral turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to every human ship in the sector," he said. His voice was calm, but everyone on the bridge could feel the weight behind it. "The line has been broken. We are no longer at peace." Within hours, every human military vessel had received the message. Something strange happened across human space. There was no panic. There was no confusion. It was as if humanity had been waiting for this moment without knowing it. Factory workers left their jobs and reported to recruitment centers. Scientists stopped their research and began designing weapons. Ships that had been used for mining and transport were stripped down and rebuilt with armor and guns. The human government had maintained secret plans for this day, plans they hoped they would never need. They called it Protocol Omega, and it meant total war. The Council received news of the human response and laughed. Hayave clicked his mandibles in amusement during the emergency session. "They have 400 warships," he said. "We have 40,000. Let them come. We will teach them why young species should know their place." The other Council members agreed. Some were already planning how to divide human territory after the war. They expected the conflict to last perhaps 3 months. Admiral Wei gathered his fleet at the edge of human space. 412 ships faced an enemy that outnumbered them 100 to 1. But Wei knew something the Council did not understand. Human ships were not built for beauty or tradition like crystal vessels. They were not grown organically like hive ships. Human ships were built for one purpose: to hurt the enemy and survive. Every system had 3 backups. Every weapon had been designed by people who understood that war was ugly, and survival mattered more than honor. The first battle happened at the Nexus Gate, a massive station that controlled travel through this sector of space. The Council sent a fleet of 2,000 ships to crush the human rebellion quickly. They expected the humans to fight traditionally, meeting them in organized lines like civilized species did. Instead, human ships scattered like insects. They used asteroids for cover. They attacked from impossible angles. They launched missiles that split into dozens of smaller missiles. When Council ships tried to track human vessels, they found their sensors blinded by clouds of reflective particles. When they tried to communicate, human electronic warfare ships scrambled their signals. The commander leading the Council fleet had fought 12 wars in his lifetime. He had never seen anything like this. Human ships died, yes, but they sold their deaths expensively. A single human destroyer, badly damaged and unable to escape, accelerated directly into the Council flagship. The commander's last thought was confusion. No species he knew would sacrifice themselves so willingly. News of the Battle of Nexus Gate spread through the galaxy. The Council had lost 800 ships. The humans had lost 90. For the first time, other species looked at humanity with something other than contempt. Some felt fear. Others felt hope because they had their own grudges against the Council. The Council responded by calling together the largest fleet ever assembled. 15,000 warships from every member species gathered at the Council. They would crush humanity with overwhelming force. There would be no more mistakes. But while the Council gathered their strength, humanity was not idle. Human scientists had been working on something they called Project Prometheus. It was a new kind of weapon, one that used principles the Council had declared impossible. Admiral Wei received word that Project Prometheus was ready. He looked at the technical specifications and allowed himself a small smile. The Council believed they understood physics. They believed their 12,000 years of knowledge made them masters of science. But humans had only been in space for 200 years, and they had already discovered things the ancient races had never imagined. Perhaps short lives made humans think faster. Perhaps desperation was the mother of invention. Either way, humanity now had weapons that would change everything. The final battle took place in the Void of Sorrows, a region of empty space between star systems. The Council fleet jumped in, confident in their numbers. 15,000 ships against 300 human vessels. The mathematics seemed simple, but then the human ships activated Project Prometheus. Reality itself seemed to bend around the human fleet. Council weapons passed through human ships as if they were ghosts. Council shields collapsed without being touched. Ships that had stood against every weapon in the galaxy began falling apart at the molecular level. High watched from his command ship as his fleet died around him. His voice clicked in panic. What is this? What are they doing? His science officers had no answers. They were seeing principles that shouldn't exist. The humans had weaponized something the Council had dismissed as theoretical impossibilities. Admiral Wei opened a communication channel to the entire Council fleet. His face appeared on every screen, calm and unsmiling. "You broke the line," he said simply. "You attacked our children. You burned our homes. You laughed while you did it. Now you understand what humanity truly is. We are not your servants. We are not your pets. We are the species that learned to kill each other so efficiently that we almost destroyed ourselves a dozen times before reaching space. Every weapon you see today, we first designed to use on ourselves. You woke something that should have stayed sleeping." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 12,000 Council ships were debris floating in the void. The human fleet had lost 108 vessels. The remainder of the Council forces surrendered. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Galactic Council had been truly defeated. But Admiral Wei did not destroy the Council as many expected. When his fleet arrived at the Council, he did not demand surrender or vengeance. Instead, he asked for something stranger. He asked for change. He wanted new laws that protected all species equally. He wanted seats on the Council for young races. He wanted the Council to become what it had always claimed to be, a gathering of equals working together. Hai, humbled and frightened, asked why humanity did not simply take control. Wei looked at him with eyes that held both anger and something softer. "Because we have seen what happens when one group rules over others by force," he said. "Our history is filled with empires that rose on blood and fell in fire. We do not want to rule you. We want you to be better. If you cannot be better, then we will return. And next time we will not be merciful." The Council agreed to every demand. They had no choice. In the months that followed, the galaxy transformed. Young species who had been oppressed for centuries found their voices. Old species who had grown cruel in their power learned to fear consequences. And through it all, humanity stood watch, no longer the quiet newcomers but the fierce guardians of a new order. On Earth, they built a memorial for the victims of colony. 300,000 names carved in black stone under an open sky. Admiral Wei visited on the first anniversary. He stood before the wall of names and spoke to no one in particular. "We answered," he said quietly. "When they broke the line, we answered." In schools across human space, children learned a new lesson about their species. Humans were patient. Humans were kind. Humans believed in peace and cooperation. But humans also carried something ancient in their hearts, something that emerged when their families were threatened. The galaxy had learned this truth through fire and blood. They would not forget it. Years later, when new species emerged from there and asked about humanity, older races would tell them the story of the Council War. They would explain how a young species had defeated the most powerful alliance in the galaxy. Some would say it was technology, others would say it was luck, but the wise ones would shake their heads and offer a different answer. They won, they would say, because they were willing to pay any price to protect their own. Do not mistake human kindness for weakness. Do not mistake their patience for fear, and whatever you do, never harm their children. Because when the council broke the line, humanity struck back with fury that shook the stars, and they would do it again without hesitation. The galaxy remembered, the galaxy learned, and humanity, finally seen for what they truly were, took their place among the stars, not as servants or conquerors, but as equals who had earned their respect the hard way. The age of the old council was over. The age of the new galaxy had begun.